And there it is again. That headache that shows up like clockwork every day or two and just will not go away no matter what you try. It makes you want to pull your hair out because you don't know where it comes from. But it's always there and it's brutal. And usually you just have to sleep it off. You'd give anything to stop that headache from coming back. How many of you have said that to yourselves? Well, there's a lot of folks out there that like to walk out and point up at the sky and say, oh, look at those little white lines. That's the reason up there. Or they like to go to the grocery store and point at one label versus another and blame that, or something else in the water. But trust me when I tell you, it's cognitive dissonance. Because they're throwing out information literally at such a rapid pace right now that directly contradicts itself that people can't even pick up on it. It is literally dark side of the force stuff. And it's stuff that we've talked about here for years and years. And if you can get a hold on it and you can understand it and see it, that headache will go away. And it'll never come back, I promise. Because it happens to the best of us. It's a battlefield of the mind stuff. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are rolling their eyes and they're saying, oh, here comes the Patreon pitch. Yeah, because there are folks out there that have a huge vested interest in me not getting this information to you. Every time I tried here on an open platform, video got taken down, demonetized, something. But over here, we have found a bit of a sanctuary. And I have set it at the lowest possible allowable level to get in to take part in this training. Now, I'm going to show you guys something today that once I show it and lay it all out and explain it, some of you are going to have a headache go away immediately. Others of you are going to be just sitting there with your mouth open going, how did I not see this? And more importantly, why are none of my other favorite independent news channels talking about this? This is so easy to see once it's pointed to you, but why couldn't you see it before? If you'd like to join us over at Patreon, $1 per month. Even less if you sign up for an entire year. And once again, as always, to prove I'm on the up and up, fully refundable. First 90 days. You can go over there and take 90 days worth of videos, hundreds of them, by the way, never been seen on YouTube. And you can kick the tires. You can listen. You can understand these concepts. And if you have a financial issue or it's just not for you, you can get a full refund. Now, let's start right here. This is going to blow your mind. The United States is producing more oil than any country in history. This is an older article from CNN that's popped up recently. Now, what if I told you that the United States has never produced a single drop of oil in its history? You see, we have corporations in the country, businesses in the country that produce the oil. But as far as a nation goes, we don't. Why? Because we don't have nationalized oil. Now, what does this have to do with anything that's going on in the news, and what's the real psyop? U.S. reimposes Venezuela sanctions. You see, when we talk about Venezuelan oil, it is oil that actually belongs to the Venezuelan people as per their constitution. Now, this is 18 April 2024. U.S. reimposes Venezuela sanctions. A 6-month reprieve has been ended due to concerns surrounding upcoming presidential elections in the South American country. The U.S. has reinstated sanctions on Venezuela's crucial energy industry over what Washington describes as Caracas' failure to adhere to democratic principles. The move comes as the nation prepares for presidential elections. Okay, now, a lot of you are like, yep, that's right, those socialists, we're going to teach them a lesson, boy. We're going to fix their little red wagon. Really? I'm going to show you a picture here. And this is where those of you who have a headache, the headache might go away. And for some of you, it might start. How did this guy do in the last round of elections in Saudi Arabia? I didn't catch that. He seems to do really, really well every time, because I've never heard of anyone, really, coming anywhere near him in the election. Oh, that's right. Saudi Arabia doesn't even have elections. And is it just Saudi Arabia? Oh, no. This is leader Dubai. You think they have elections there? Buddy. Close pals with the United States. Never any sanctions for anything ever. Now remember, The reason we're reimposing sanctions on Venezuelan oil is because we don't think their elections are fair enough. The U.S. doesn't think their elections are fair enough. And we are buddy-buddy, super good pals with places that don't even think democratic elections have a place in society. Can somebody explain that, please? President of the UAE. UAE is probably one of the most Western-like of these countries that we are so much in bed with. The president of the UAE and vice presidents are de jure by law elected every 5 years by the Federal Supreme Council, and the prime minister of the United Arab Emirates is de jure appointed by the president. They appoint by family all of these men who run all of these countries and control all of this oil. The Federal Supreme Council of the Union, also known as the Supreme Council of Rulers, is the highest constitutional authority in the UAE, being the highest legislative and executive body. So I ask you again, we don't produce any oil. We have big capitalist corporations that do, and they make a whole bunch of money, but we don't. Venezuela has nationalized oil, as virtually every major country, developed country in the world has. Mexico, Brazil, all of the European countries. We are the odd man out. But we're the ones telling the world that because this place isn't doing elections good enough, that it's deserving of sanctions, while we are best friends with guys who have harems of wives and concubines. That's right. Just like in the Bible. They have harems, they have wives, and they have concubines. Now, you ready for the next psyop? Oh, but Florida Maquis, look, they are all covered, head to toe. They are so moral. Yeah, there's nothing immoral about having 33 or 38 or 35 wives or whatever, as long as they all stayed covered up in public. Is that the standard? Is that the new standard now? This is the leader of, is this Qatar? Yeah. Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. Let's take a quick peek at his personal life down here. It's way down here, but you're going to love this. Personal life. Sheikh Tamim married his first wife and second cousin, Sheikha Jawahar bint Hamad Al Thani, on 8 January 25, and they have 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters. Sheikh Tamim married his second wife without divorcing his first one, and they have 5 children, 3 daughters and 2 sons. 25 February 14, third wife, and they have 3 sons and a daughter. In total, the man has 13 children, born between 2006 and 2020, 7 sons and 6 daughters from 3 wives. Now, let me ask you another question. Remember that guy out in Utah? That Warren Jeffs? What did they demonize him for? What did they pick up and throw him in jail for and turn him into the worst person in the world for? Now you ready for this? 1937, Kentucky. 1937, Louisville. 30-something-year-old mine worker marries, I believe, somewhere between 10 and 12-year-old girl. Now, that was in this country less than 100 years ago. Perfectly legal. But there's an interesting thing to that story. You ready for this? You're going to love this. I'm going to read this to you. And this is from a group of people who are largely recognized as the most God-fearing, Christian, moral values, family-oriented generation to have ever lived in this country. These are basically the parents of the boomers. Think of grandma, 75, 80, their parents. Okay? I'm going to read what's really going on here. My great-grandfather was in his 30s when he married my 14-year-old great-grandmother, who was an orphan facing homelessness and poverty, and he was a Spanish-American War veteran. So the interesting thing I learned is that this wasn't all that uncommon, but the lesser-known part of the story, is that it was common for veterans to pick very young orphans to marry because after these dudes died, their young wives were entitled to a war widow's pension for life. So when he died, she lived for another 60 years with guaranteed income and never had to work another day in her life. She had freedom and economic independence, decades ahead of most women, and refused to remarry because that would take it away from her. She died when the speaker there was in high school. She said that the man had a drinking problem, but that she loved her children and was always grateful for him rescuing her from poverty and leaving her with independent financial stability in an era where that was really rare for women. She wasn't rich, but she never had to depend on a man for survival again. Now, that sounds an awful lot like, oh, what's that word? Oh, yeah, that's right. Socialism. That war widow's pension. That's some whole big old bunch of socialism right there. You see, I picked this up, and there's a lot of people that don't even have to have this explained to them. Shipping tons of junk people don't need around the globe so it can just become waste didn't work. Setting us all against each other as competitors didn't work. Privatizing basic needs didn't work. See, a lot of people got mad at me because I outed this whole thing with OnlyFans and how it's mostly older women who have nowhere else to go, who need the money. And so we have this picture now being painted that people would look at and go, oh my God, I can't believe this is so terrible, this is so horrible. Well, you're the ones who wanted capitalism, right? Here you go. Capitalism 101. But getting back to the original story, can you please explain for me why Venezuela, in order to not suffer the wrath of dollar sanctions, Washington, D.C. sanctions, has to have perfect elections, but basically the entire Middle East doesn't even have to try? Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Yemen, the UAE, or the UAE, Qatar, Dubai, they don't even have to try. In fact, in the direct contravention of free and fair elections, they rule as theocracies. And everything that you see now from all of your independent media sources about what's wrong with America, the little island, little St. James Island, all that kind of stuff, not only did it go on in this country, not only did that go on in this country for hundreds of years, it goes on today amongst our closest allies. Amongst our closest allies. But nobody says a word. And you wonder why you have a headache. You wonder why you wake up and have a headache? Is because your subconscious gets it. Your subconscious understands these things can't possibly exist in the same universe, but somehow I have been manipulated into making them exist in my brain. In the same space. And that's what's giving you the headaches. It isn't what's up in the sky, kids. It isn't in the food. It isn't in the water. It's in your mind. It's called cognitive dissonance. There should be absolutely not one negative word said about Nicolas Maduro or his predecessor, Hugo Chavez, in the context of Saudi Arabia or any of our other allies over there. Because what they do is far more backward. And I mean centuries more backward than anything you could possibly imagine going on in Venezuela. But they can't have you seeing that. They can't have you see that because they need to run their propaganda. And it's on both sides. Propaganda, capitalist propaganda 101. The United States is producing more oil than any country in history. Baloney. The U.S. doesn't produce any oil. The United States, the people of the United States have produced exactly zero drops of oil. The only people who have produced any oil are corporations within the United States. Not us. We don't. So, I will leave it there. But once again, if you'd like to join us, get read in, get brought up to speed on how PSYOPs work, the 24 basic cognitive biases, the 24 basic logical fallacies that everyone has, Learn them inside and out. Learn to recognize them when you see them. Learn to recognize them in their weaponized form. And then, once you have a concept of that, you can start to think of how you can use those tactics and techniques in controlled offensive operations in your life. White hat, of course. $1 US. Is that worth $1 US per month? Love to have you. Sorry about the cold. Sorry about all the noise, the background, the mic. It's, I don't know where this came from, but I'm glad I got through it. 15 and a half minutes. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Lift each other up. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.